Hey, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So not enough arm twisting, I guess. All right, please, 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 come on. Have you guys been talking to my mother? Please have a seat. Virginia Democrats, there's no place like home. It is great to be back with you. I'm a Richmonder, but I'm a road warrior these days, and to come back to this JJ and to see so many wonderful friends from my now 17 years in political life, friends from city council days, from when I was mayor, lieutenant governor, governor, neighbors, people I've seen in every corner of this Commonwealth. It really, really warms my heart, and I'll just start off by saying thank you. Thank you for your support during my entire political career. You guys are just awesome. You're awesome. I want to thank Brian for his kind words. Thank Karen for her saintly allowance of him to do this job. The state party is in wonderful hands. I got to be a close friend of Brian's when he was in the legislature serving as the caucus leader, and I saw his skill, his passion, his heart. He's just the right person to be leading our party at this rebuilding moment, and Brian, we're real proud of you. Please give Brian Rand another big round of applause. When I accepted the invitation to come tonight, I had two purposes in mind. One, to deliver a message as the national party chair, how the national party and our president look at Virginia today. My second purpose, and I'm looking forward to it, is introducing a great friend to you in a minute, the governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley. But I've decided to wedge in a little third purpose too. There's been some discussion about my future, and I may just have a word or two about it as I get into my comments. But let me do the important one that I wanted to deliver first, and that's about our mission, why we're here, why we do this year after year, and here we are in 2011 with some big battles ahead. Let me tell you about Virginia from the standpoint of national party chair. Tim Kaine is national party chair. I still have to kind of pinch myself. If you had told me I would be in politics when I was a kid, I would say you must be joking. But if you had told me I would be national party chair, I would have said, what are you smoking? I mean, it's pretty amazing development here. But look, I want to tell you as I travel around the country, and Raymond will acknowledge this, Democrats everywhere have a lot of respect for the Virginia Democratic Party and what Virginia Democrats have done. There are states where it's easier to be a Democrat than Virginia, right? There are states where it's easier, but even after a difficult 2009 and 2010, people around this country recognize that Democrats in Virginia have made probably more gains, advanced the farthest in the decade than virtually any other party in any other state. And that's something you should feel very, very good about. When I started in state politics in 2000. We were viewed, as Mark Warner said, as so reliably red. Everything was red, and the parties didn't even bother to darken our door during presidential campaigns. Democratic candidates said, why bother? Republican candidates said, we don't need to. That's where we were just 10 years ago. How much we've changed in a decade. I'm on the road 4 or 5 days a week, but I am still a proud Virginia Democrat, and you have every right to be very proud of what you have accomplished. Because as you know, in the last decade, we won 2 of 3 governor's races. We regained the majority in the state Senate. We sent 3 wonderful new Democrats into the House of Representatives. We put 2 Democrats into the state Senate, the first time that had happened for over 30 years. And for the first time in 44 years, we put the state's electoral votes into the blue column when we supported Barack Obama in 2008. And and I'll just share personally, my single proudest moment politically, and it's a Virginia moment, was, and some of you were there, standing in the state capitol of Virginia, December 15th, 2008, when the Virginia electors gathered to cast their electoral votes for President Obama, standing in that Capitol that Thomas Jefferson designed, the man who wrote "All men are created equal but own slaves." That Capitol, that building where all the laws passing and enforcing slavery in the Commonwealth were passed in the late 1700s and early 1800s, that Capitol, that building where the Confederate States of America met as a legislative body for 4 years in the 1860s, that Capitol that saw the Constitution of Virginia rewritten in 1902 to take away all the rights of African Americans that had been granted in the Reconstruction period, that Capitol where the massive resistance laws were put in place to stop the march toward equality in progress in Virginia. That Capitol, those walls had seen it all. The stories that had happened in that building were stories often of tragedy, and yet here we were, Virginia Democrats having done something so magnificent, putting the electoral votes behind Barack Obama. I may have other wonderful nights in politics. I'm never going to have as good a moment in politics ever again as the day that we had as Virginia Democrats in December of 2008. But you know, I guess the real good thing is we're not just doing it for elections, right? None of us in this room do politics for politics' sake. We do politics so that we can make things happen for people, so that we can lighten some people's burdens and expand some opportunities and find some new pathways that weren't there before. And that's what's been so great about the Democratic Party's resurgence in Virginia in the last 10 years. We've made fundamental political change, but then we've used that change as Democrats in power to help Virginia achieve continuous acclaim for best management and best state for business and best state for children. We're a low unemployment and high median income state. We've expanded our educational success, dropped our infant mortality rate dramatically, brought new businesses to the Commonwealth, expanded rail and public transit options, protected open space, protected the Chesapeake Bay. This is the record of Democrats in Virginia, a record that all Democrats and all Virginians can be very, very proud of. Now, we've had our share of setbacks. Some dear friends who've been acknowledged earlier tonight have lost races in the last 2 cycles. Leaders who've done wonderful work and are continuing to. Those losses are painful when you think about these members of Congress, Glenn and Rick and Tom, who are not serving in Congress today. The nation needs them, and those are painful losses. But those losses teach us a lesson too. An important lesson, a lesson that we've all learned outside of politics before we got involved in elections. As some of you know, I was a civil rights lawyer in Richmond for 17 years before I got into statewide politics. And I learned the trade from some wonderful civil rights lawyers, people like Oliver Hill and Henry Marsh and others. And I'll tell you what they taught me. The march toward progress is never a straight line. You know, it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. If you work hard to do right for people, you're going to have victories and defeats. The forces that oppose change are very, very strong. They're going to fight against progress every step of the way. But while I don't know every person in this room, I do know something about every person in this room. We are tough people. We are resilient people. We don't mind an uphill battle. We don't mind a fight for a just cause, even if the odds are against us. And that's the lesson we have to learn from the losses, that's part of this whole thing. But we've got to, as Brian said, jump back up and say we're fighting for the right things. We're still energized. There's battles tomorrow we need to win, and Virginians are counting on us to win them. We know, if we stick to our principles, the principles of our party, if we do what's right, we'll help people get ahead, we'll create jobs, we'll win the future. We're going to win more than we're going to lose. And we're going to continue to be that agent of moving our state to an ever more progressive and brighter future. We're going to start our comeback this year by working hard to secure these important victories, right? We're going to add to our margin in the Senate, and we're going to pick up seats in the House. Are you ready to work hard to make that happen, right? And the main message that I want to deliver to you tonight is this one, as National Party Chair. Just as we won this state in 2008, we are going to win it again in 2012. It'll be a blue year in Virginia in 2012. Virginia. Virginia was front and center in electing President Obama in 2008. The first event that the president did after the primaries were over was in Bristol, Virginia. The last event he did before Election Day was standing with 90,000 of us in Bull Run up in Manassas in Prince William County. The president remembers that. It's not an accident that as DNC chair I chose Charlotte as the convention city for the Democratic Party in 2012. The president liked the choice, and I'll tell you why. Because it sends a strong signal that we're going to continue to play aggressive politics on the other guy's turf. And we will continue our focus on reaching into the South, states that the other guys think they own. We're going to reach there. And just like we won Virginia and North Carolina in 2008, we're going to win them again in 2012. And so, all the campaign resources and the excitement and the energy that we remember that Obama HQ up on Marshall Street in the Carver neighborhood and coordinated offices with the Democratic Party all over the state. That's going to happen again. We've been working on the plan. I can tell you with a high degree of certainty you're going to see it again and more in 2012, and that's going to help us be victorious, but it's not just the resources. The real reason we're going to be victorious is because of the issues we stand for and the way we'll contrast in 2012 who we are with who the other guys are. We're going to focus on the future, while the Republicans are focusing on the battles of the past, trying to repeal health care reform. Their label, they call it Obamacare. They think care is a bad word. I mean, isn't it interesting that if they had to pick something really negative, care. Caring is bad. Caring is wrong. Caring is something we have to repeal, we have to fight against. We're not going to let that happen. They're fighting battles of the past to repeal Wall Street reform and cut Social Security and Medicaid and gut environmental regulations. Just look at what Republicans are doing this week. In Washington this week, Republicans in the House waged a successful effort thus far. It will stop to try to deny women access to birth control. In the resolution they voted the other morning, they voted out any funding to Planned Parenthood or for birth control in the federal budget. That's what they're doing at the national level. And at the state level in Wisconsin, and Brian mentioned this, governors and others in state houses across this country on the Republican side have decided what they want to do is wage a war against their own employees, against public employees who are teaching our kids, who are caring for our parents in nursing homes, who are patrolling our neighborhoods. That's who this party is. When I see them doing these things, I say, wait a minute, I thought you guys were about creating jobs. What does this have to do with any of that? Well, you know, there's a reason that Republicans like to fight the past battles instead of working to grow the economy, and the reason is this. Their history shows they don't know anything about economic growth or how to create jobs. Right? And they don't know a darn thing about it. During the 8 years of the previous Republican administration, during that 8-year period, family median income went down. The gaps between rich and poor expanded. The national gross domestic product flipped from growing to shrinking. While the population in that period grew by 10%, the number of jobs in the nation grew by 1%. And here's a shocker. And use this one if anybody ever comes up to you and says that Democrats are not good for business, not good for the economy. If you put $1 into the stock market the day that George Bush was inaugurated, it was worth 78 cents when he walked out of office 8 years later. All right? So that's what these guys know about the economy. Let me tell you about Democrats. 2 years into a Democratic administration, gross domestic product is not shrinking, it's growing again. We've now gained private sector jobs for 12 months in a row. And $1 invested in the stock market on that beautiful, clear day in Washington when Barack Obama was inaugurated is not worth 78 cents, and it's not worth $1. It's worth nearly $1.50 today. That's what Democratic leadership does for this nation. Now, just as we've achieved huge gains in health care, stopping the war in Iraq, expanding student loans, appointing 2 wonderful women to the Supreme Court, protecting LGBT citizens by expanding rights, saving the American auto industry. We've got to gear up for future battles, for comprehensive immigration reform, for enhanced educational competitiveness, and for the green energy renaissance that can help us fight climate change. These are the battles that we're going to fight and win. The Democrats, with the optimistic, forward vision to outbuild, out-innovate, out-educate our competitors. The Republicans, with the effort to go back to the policies that put our nation into the deepest tailspin since the 1930s. When you talk about it that way, I like our chances. I like our chances in 2012, and I like our competitive spirit. Let me say one more word about 2012, if you'll just allow me to personally. I want to also acknowledge the incredible service that Jim Webb has provided as a senator. I've run 7 races and won 7 races, but I never felt that any of my races had the hand of destiny on them. I just had to scuffle my way to get over the finish line ahead of the other guy. And I've worked on an awful lot of races. I've only worked on 2 races in my life that I thought had the hand of destiny on them. And one was the election of President Obama as president in 2008. That just had to be. That just had to be. But the other one was Jim Webb's Senate victory. When Jim Webb got into the Senate race in 2006 with no money and no staff, standing there in the boots of his son who was serving in Iraq, saying that the Senate had gone too far and was caving into President Bush and waging wars unnecessarily, and somebody needed to stand up in that Senate, even an unlikely candidate, even somebody who, most people would never have imagined running for office. When he stood up and declared that day, I just remember thinking, wow, I'm not sure this is going to happen, but if lightning could strike a person, lightning can strike Jim Webb. And what we did in that race was tremendous, and what Jim Webb has done as a senator has been tremendous. And I'm like you, I just got to say, I'm really sad that we're not going to have Jim Webb for another term. I do want to say that I thank everyone who has encouraged me to think about running in 2012. It's touching, it's gratifying to see so many people who understand that the race is important and who feel like I might be able to serve the Commonwealth in this capacity. And I'll tell you, it is flattering and it's kind, but it's a challenge too, because I have a job that I absolutely love right now. I get to travel this country on behalf of the president and the party, advocating for values I believe in, often going into some pretty tough territory where the president needs a friend. He and I were joking about it the other day. I said, you just don't have a lot of 50-year-old white Southern governors out stumping for you nonstop in English and Spanish. That's not your power demographic. I mean, and I love the ability to do that. I was completely focused on doing that all the way through 2012 because I want to make sure that we win that most important race in that year. But I do understand in the aftermath of Jim's announcement how important this seat is. So my wife Ann and I, and everything we've done as a team. We're spending some time reflecting about it, and I'm going to make a decision soon about whether I can best serve the Commonwealth and the nation as chair of the party or as a Senate candidate. But whatever decision I make, I'm confident that the next senator from Virginia will be a Democrat. We will have a strong Democratic Senate candidate, and we will all pull together to run a winning Senate race in 2012, just like we did in 2006 and 2008. Now, I'm going to introduce now somebody who's going to tell us a little bit how to make it happen. Martin O'Malley was a wonderful mayor of the city of Baltimore that I met when I was city mayor here in Richmond. That was how we first came to know one another. And then we served together as governors. He is a great governor. He is a man of the people. He actually has the best Irish band of any sitting American governor. He is blessed with a spectacular family. He's got wonderful accomplishments, successful efforts to invest in public education, cut crime, protect the environment, create jobs. He and I work closely together on all kinds of things as governor, working to protect the Chesapeake Bay, bring blue crabs back, work on homeland security, work on the planning of a pretty complicated inaugural. We worked on all kinds of challenging issues together, and in my time as governor, I came to know Martin as skilled in many ways, but maybe one in particular that I think he's really valuable at. Martin always connects what he's doing with why he's doing it. Sometimes we talk about the policies we believe in and the things that we want to do, but often as Democrats we need to kind of root it in what are the values that make us do the things we do. What is it that drives us and motivates us forward? And Martin does a wonderful job at that. He also deserves Virginians' thanks, and not a lot of people in this room know this, but I just want to say it. When we got into the closing stretch of the 2008 presidential campaign, Maryland's electoral votes were not in doubt. Maryland produced pretty solidly. And Governor O'Malley realized that. And he realized, look, I can keep my folks here in Maryland, or I can take the great Maryland Democrats we have and try to do some good and win some electoral votes somewhere else. And we, weekend after weekend, we had Marylanders by the dozens and by the hundreds and by the thousands, at the encouragement of this governor, coming to our communities, knocking on doors, making phone calls, licking the envelopes, putting the stamps on, doing what was important to do to help a neighbor so that you could help a neighbor do something that was really important. And you know, Martin, I described that moment of winning that election here, and it meant a lot in Virginia. It was more than an election in Virginia. It really did. And those of us who were working so hard in this state, the people who stood with us to make it happen, we're always, always going to remember. And you all need to know that this governor and his Marylanders really, really turned out in record numbers to help us do what we had to do. And so will you now give a warm, warm Virginia welcome to Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley.
Heart is a blue.
Thank you all. Thank you so very, very much. Governor Kaine, Chairman Kaine, thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your great taste.